I stared at the two pink lines on the plastic stick sitting on my granite countertop, and for the first time in my life, I felt absolutely nothing. No joy, no relief, just a cold, hollow realization that my timing had always been my greatest curse. I was 8 weeks pregnant with the man who had spent the last 6 months rebuilding his life inside another woman's bed. It wasn't just any woman, it was Elena. Elena, who stood as my maid of honor 3 years ago. Elena, who held my hair back when I had food poisoning on my 30th birthday. We had a pact since we were 10 years old. No secrets, no judgments, and definitely no boys between us. I thought we were the exception to the rule. I thought Julian was the exception to the statistics. I was wrong on both counts. The betrayal didn't arrive with a scream or a dramatic confrontation. It arrived with a text message sent to the wrong person. Julian had been in the shower, and his phone buzzed on the nightstand. I usually didn't look, but it kept buzzing. 5, 6, 7 times. I thought it was an emergency. It was. The doctor confirmed it today. It's a boy, Julian. He's going to have your eyes. I can't wait to see your face when you hold him. We're finally going to be the family she couldn't give you. The world didn't stop turning, which felt like an insult. The water was still running in the bathroom. The birds were still chirping outside our suburban window. I sat on the edge of the bed, the phone heavy in my hand, feeling my pulse thrumming in my fingertips. I didn't cry. I think I was too shocked for tears. I just kept reading that last sentence. The family she couldn't give you. We had been trying for 2 years. 2 years of temperature charts, expensive vitamins, and the crushing disappointment of every single period. Elena knew that. She was the one I cried to every month. She was the one who told me to stay patient, that God has a plan. Apparently, her plan was more efficient. When Julian walked out of the bathroom, steam clinging to his shoulders, he looked so familiar, and yet like a complete stranger. I held the phone up. I didn't say a word. I just wanted to see if he would lie. He didn't. He didn't even try. He just slumped against the doorframe, the towel sliding slightly, and covered his face with his hands. "Cassie," he whispered, "I'm so sorry." "Sorry for the baby?" I asked, my voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. "Or sorry you sent the text to the wife instead of the mistress?" He looked up, his eyes red. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. We were going to tell you once I figured out how to handle the divorce. I didn't want to hurt you." "You chose the one person who could hurt me the most," I said. "Why her, Julian? Why my best friend?" He looked away. "She was just there, when you were so focused on the pregnancy, on the doctors, on the stress. She listened. She made me feel like I wasn't just a donor. She made me feel seen." I felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with my own secret pregnancy. I hadn't told him yet. I had found out that morning, and I was planning a dinner to surprise him. Now the surprise was on me. I looked at him, this man I had built a home with, and I realized he wasn't a villain in a movie. He was just a weak man who took the path of least resistance. And Elena, she wasn't just a friend who fell in love. She was a woman who wanted what I had, and she had finally won. I moved into a small apartment 3 days later. I didn't take much. Just my clothes, my books, and the ultrasound picture I hadn't shown him. I didn't tell him I was pregnant. Why would I? To tether myself to a man who was already building a nursery in another house? To give him a reason to stay out of obligation? No. I wanted him to choose his new life completely. I wanted him to see what a life without me actually felt like. Elena tried to call me 42 times in the first week. I blocked her after the first 10. Then came the emails. They weren't apologies, they were justifications. Cassie, you have to understand. We didn't plan for this to happen, but the connection we have, it's deeper than anything I've ever felt. You were always so busy with your career, so busy with your goals. Julian needed someone who put him first. I'm giving him the one thing you never could. Don't hate us for being happy. It was the revenge aspect that stung the most. I heard it through our mutual friends. Elena wasn't just happy to be pregnant, she was telling people that she was fixing what I had broken. She told our old college group that I was cold and unfit to be a mother anyway, so it was a blessing that Julian found her. She wanted to erase me. She wanted to prove that she was the better version of me. I spent my evenings in my quiet apartment, eating crackers to stave off the morning sickness that lasted all day, and staring at the wall. The silence was deafening. Every time I felt a flutter in my stomach, a sharp pang of grief hit me. My child would grow up with a half-brother or sister just a few miles away. My child would have a father who was busy playing house with the woman who destroyed our family. I wondered if I should tell him. Every morning, I woke up intending to send the text, "I'm pregnant too, Julian." But then I'd think of Elena's smug emails. If I told him, it would become a competition. It would be two women fighting over a man who wasn't worth the breath. I decided to wait. I decided to let the dust settle. I needed to see who Julian was when the newness of Elena wore off, and the reality of a screaming infant and a mortgage set in. 6 months passed. My belly grew, hidden under oversized sweaters and a new, solitary life. I changed my job, moved to a different branch of my firm, and cut ties with anyone who still spoke to Elena. I needed a clean slate. But the world is small. I was at a grocery store picking out oranges when I saw him. Julian looked haggard. He had dark circles under his eyes, and he was wearing a shirt that looked like it hadn't been ironed in weeks. He was staring at a shelf of baby formula with a look of pure exhaustion. He didn't see me at first. I had a choice. I could turn around and walk away. I could keep my secret and my dignity. But then he looked up. Our eyes locked. His gaze dropped immediately to my stomach. The color drained from his face. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Cassie," he whispered. I didn't run. I stood my ground. "Hello, Julian. Are you—" He couldn't even finish the sentence. He walked toward me, his hand reaching out instinctively before he pulled it back. "How far along are you?" 7 months, I said calmly. 7? He did the math. His eyes widened. That's mine." "It is." "Why didn't you tell me? Why would you keep this from me?" There was a flash of anger in his eyes, the first bit of emotion I'd seen from him that wasn't guilt. "Because you were busy," I said, my voice level. "You were busy building a family with Elena. You were busy telling the world I couldn't give you what you wanted. I didn't want to interrupt your happiness with a complication." "It's not a complication, it's my child." He raised his voice, and a few shoppers looked over. He lowered it quickly. "Cassie, things haven't been what I expected." I leaned against my cart. "Oh, is the deeper connection not enough to cover the midnight feedings?" He looked miserable. "She's different now. Ever since the baby came, she's obsessed with you. She talks about you constantly. She wants to know if I've heard from you, if you're dating, if you're miserable. It's like she didn't want me, she just wanted to take you from me. And now that she has, she doesn't know what to do with me." I felt a cold shiver of validation. It wasn't love for Elena. It was a competition she had been playing by herself for 20 years. The final blow didn't come from Julian. It came from Elena. 2 weeks before my due date, there was a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, Elena was standing there. She looked terrible. Her hair was greasy, she was holding her infant son in a carrier, and her eyes were manic. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" she spat, pushing her way past me into my apartment. "Get out, Elena," I said, my hand on my stomach. "He won't stop talking about you," she screamed. The baby started to cry, a shrill, piercing sound that filled the small living room. He found out about your pregnancy, and now he looks at me like I'm a mistake. He looks at our son like he's a consolation prize. That's between you and Julian, I said, trying to stay calm. My heart was racing. I haven't done anything. I haven't even called him. You didn't have to. You just had to exist. You always had to be the perfect one, the one everyone loved, the one with the bright future. I took him because I wanted to see you break. I wanted to see you fail at something. She was shaking now, the baby wailing in her arms. I got pregnant on purpose, Cassie. I stopped taking my pills months before he even left you. I told him it was an accident, but I wanted to trap him before you could. I wanted to be the one to give him a son first. I looked at the innocent baby in the carrier, then at the broken woman holding him. The betrayal finally lost its sting. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt pity. You didn't take anything from me, Elena, I said softly. You just took on a man who was willing to cheat on his wife. You didn't win a prize. You won a burden. And now you have to live with the fact that your entire family is built on a lie you told to hurt a friend. She looked at me, her mouth hanging open. She wanted me to scream. She wanted a fight. She wanted the drama that would justify her actions. By staying calm, I was denying her the only thing she had left, the role of the victorious rival. Leave, before I call the police. She lingered for a moment, looking around my clean, quiet, peaceful apartment. Then she turned and walked out, the sound of her baby's cries fading down the hallway. The next morning, Julian called me. He didn't sound like the man I married anymore. He sounded like a man who had finally reached the bottom of a very deep pit. She told me, he said. His voice was hollow, like he was speaking from another room. She told me she planned the pregnancy. She told me she did it to get back at you for some imaginary slight from 10 years ago. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same spot where I had found that first text. And what does that change, Julian? I asked. It doesn't change the fact that you were there. You were in that bed. You were making those choices. Elena might have manipulated the timing, but she didn't force you to lie to me for months. I know, he said. I'm leaving. I'm moving into my sister's place. I can't be with her anymore. Every time I look at her, I see the person who ruined my life. I had to stop him right there. No, Julian. Every time you look at her, you see the person who helped you ruin your own life. Don't make her the villain just so you can be the victim. You both chose this. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Can I at least be there when our baby is born? He asked. I thought about the stress, the pain, and the long road ahead. I'll let you know when I'm ready, but right now I need to be alone. The days leading up to my delivery were strangely peaceful. I spent them preparing the nursery, folding tiny clothes that smelled of lavender detergent, and walking through the park. I saw the world differently now. I saw that loyalty wasn't something you could take for granted, and that some people only want what you have because they don't know who they are without your shadow to hide in. Elena had spent her life trying to catch up to me, and in her desperation to win, she had built a prison for herself. I was finally free. My daughter, Maya, was born on a rainy Tuesday in November. Julian wasn't there for the birth, just as I had decided. I had my sister and my mother by my side, and when that tiny, warm weight was placed on my chest, the last of the resentment evaporated. Maya didn't look like Julian. She didn't look like me. She looked like herself, a brand new person with no history of betrayal or lies. I called Julian 2 days later. I told him he could come see her, but there would be strict boundaries. No Elena, no drama, no shared holidays for a long time. Just a biological responsibility and a slow building of trust that might take years. He came to the hospital alone. He looked cleaner than he had in the grocery store, but the light in his eyes was still dim. When he held Maya, he cried. He told me that he and Elena were officially over. They were going to co-parent their son, but there was no family to speak of. Elena was already spiraling, looking for someone else to blame for her unhappiness. She had even started telling people that Julian had abandoned her, playing the martyr once again. "It's a cycle with her," I said, watching him rock our daughter. "She needs someone to be the enemy so she can be the hero. Don't let yourself get sucked back into it." "I won't," he promised. "I'm going to counseling. I need to figure out why I was so easy to pull away." I appreciated the honesty, but I didn't offer him comfort. I wasn't his therapist anymore, and I certainly wasn't his wife. We were two people who shared a child, and that was where our story ended and Maya's began. I watched him across the sterile room and realized I didn't want him back. The love I'd had for him was like a glass that had been shattered and glued back together. It might hold water, but it would never be clear again. "I'm glad you're leaving her," I said. "Not for me, but for yourself. You both deserve to be honest for once." "Do you think you can ever forgive me?" he asked. "I already have," I told him. "Forgiveness isn't for you, Julian. It's so I don't have to carry your mess around with me anymore. I have a daughter to raise. I don't have room for your guilt." As I sat there, holding my daughter, I realized the revenge Elena sought had backfired in the most permanent way. She wanted to take my life, but she ended up trapped in a version of it she couldn't handle. She had a child she didn't truly want, with a man who didn't truly love her, all to spite a woman who had already moved on. I looked down at Maya. She had my eyes, she had a future, and most importantly, she had a mother who knew exactly who she was. The silence of the nursery wasn't lonely anymore, it was peaceful. I had spent so much of my marriage trying to be enough for a man who didn't know how to be enough for himself. I had spent so much of my friendship trying to support a woman who was actually my secret enemy. Now I had no one to please but myself and this little girl. Elena's revenge was the catalyst for my own awakening. She thought she was taking the throne, but she only took the burden. I was the one who walked away with the peace. Months later, I saw a photo of Elena on social media. She looked exhausted, standing in a messy kitchen with her son. She was still trying to post inspirational quotes about being a strong single mother, still trying to craft a narrative where she was the brave survivor of a cruel world. I felt a momentary sadness for the boy in the photo, who was born out of spite rather than love. But then I looked at Maya, who was laughing at a colorful mobile, and I closed the app. Her story was hers to write, and I would make sure it was filled with truth, not lies. I would make sure she knew that revenge is a fire that burns the person who starts it far more than the person it was meant for. We were happy. We were whole, and the betrayal that once felt like the end of the world was now just a chapter in a much better book. The sun set over the city, casting long shadows across the room where I once stood with 2 pink lines and a broken heart. That heart was mended now, not by time or by another man, but by the simple, quiet strength of knowing I had survived. I had lost a husband and a best friend, but I had gained a daughter, and more importantly, I had found myself. The nursery was quiet, but it was a silence I had earned. It was the sound of a new beginning.